Going to call the meeting to order. And when Madam Secretary gets organized, will she please take the roll?
Chris Wilson,
Present.
Frank Falcone,
Here.
Bonnie Stuckert,
Present.
Tiffany DeMayo here. Rosario Scalia,
Might be here. Absent so far.
Kathy Cavalier,
She's absent.
absent.
Okay. And we stand for a moment of silence in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second,
I will second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The agenda is approved. We have no public comment. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
A motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and now we will move on to the next item of business, which is a review of the Class 2 Historic Resource Application flow chart. And I believe we don't have that, do we, Steve, or do we?
So Steve Nees had a draft outline prepared, and he was gonna give it to you tonight, but unfortunately he had a family emergency that he had to tend to tonight. So we can get that out to you tomorrow, just in draft form. They are also working on, a fully detailed version of that, but again, he's working with the solicitor to make sure that we're in line with the state code for all of the zoning procedures. But that we can get the draft out to you tomorrow through email.
Okay, so it'll be emailed out to all of us.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. And I assume it's some version of the one that I sent him.
I haven't seen it myself, but we'll get the draft out to you.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Next on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding application priority and assignments. This is where a small subcommittee was asked to come up with 10 or 15 properties in rank order. Has anything been done on that?
Started compiling a spreadsheet of the properties. The list that Rosario emailed is not concise. So it's taking a bit of time to filter through all of the information to get the actual properties that are listed. It was a little bit more daunting of a task than I had anticipated. So I, been looking at it as time permits.
So it's a work in progress.
It is.
Do you think you'll be able to finish it by our next meeting?
I will certainly try.
Well,
And if not, I will
yeah,
pawn off.
yeah. Well, Kathy should be working on this as well. And I think there was another person.
She's
Chris?
on vacation.
Yeah, I know she
She didn't
is.
bring it with her, I'm sure.
Oh, no, I know.
We
she
hadn't
is.
had a chance to sync up on it before this meeting either to see if she'd made any headway on the list.
Yeah,
Do
okay.
we have anything resembling current photos on properties that are probably going to be on your list?
There were photos, like photocopies,
In the
of black and white photo of,
yeah,
From the 80s.
right,
from the 1984.
yeah.
You want to email me a list of the ones you're thinking about?
There's
Okay.
literally I took a list off of the Historic Preservation Society website because you can easily take that
Oh,
and
yeah,
convert it to.
I know the list is like hundreds.
But most of those, Kathy had said that a lot of those are no longer in existence or they're not on the official list that Rosario sent out, so I haven't been able to go through and,
Okay, I was just gonna
identify which
I
ones
was
are.
just saying, if you guys are narrowing this down to, 10 or 15 or 20, you want to email me what they are, I could just do drive-bys and get pictures of the easy ones.
Mhm.
Obviously, if it's a mile down the road, I'm not gonna trespass, but if they're viewable from
the
public
street.
ground,
Mhm.
just because those, 1980 Xeroxes are not terribly useful.
Well, their Xeroxes on top of being
Yes,
converted to a PDF, so they're very grainy.
And I know at least in the copy that Rosario sent us, a number of those properties are no longer in existence.
That's true too, yeah.
I mean, it also might be handy to, as we're doing this, make a list of which ones don't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's,
If only to be able to say, this is why we're doing this.
yeah, so at the end of the day, we end up with something that's a little bit more updated.
Yep.
Okay, that's a good idea.
But I assume none of them are all that far, and I always have the camera in the car, so.
Pardon?
So I assume none of them are all that far, and I always have the camera in the car, so
Right,
to be able to see what they kind of look like today. If it's helpful, would be doable.
well, I think certainly before any of them are actually nominated, they should be looked at again, and I mean, that might be something. If Frank wants to go out and take a look at some of them.
Yeah, I think that's where we wanted to start with the list to then, have Kathy peruse, because she knows a lot of the ones that aren't there anymore,
Right,
to speed it along, but then,
yeah,
once we have that list, then we have to say, okay, well, which ones,
which ones do you really want to focus on?
and then, hey, Frank, would you
Yeah,
take a look at these to see
yeah.
viability and whatnot?
I know, it's noted in, the copy of the 1984 book that, Rosario emailed to all of us. Has notes in the margins of the ones that are missing,
Mhm.
and if you just go through that. Or if somebody just goes through.
I know,
that,
just go through it is what I thought too, and then it's a lot more to go through
hmm. But you just,
as you're going.
turn the
as you
pages
go
quickly
through
until
it
you
and-
see something written in the margin. Okay, moving right along. Update from the subcommittee and possible action regarding potential budget needs for 2024. We will need to get this in reasonably good shape today, because at our next meeting in August, we'll have to vote final approval.
Mhm.
So,
Yep, and Tiffany and I have been emailing and talking about this a little bit. And I kind of just built this budgeting worksheet off of our last email. I think the biggest question is how many properties do we think we're going to put through the process next year? We settled on 18 based on the fact that we're barely getting through one a meeting, if that right now, but I think we will theoretically get better as the fruits of these other.
And that flow chart is going to help a lot to decide on
Flow
on
chart
what that
and,
number
and,
looks like.
and actually figuring out, what the next 30 dozen are.
yeah, the real key to the timing is how many public hearings we can hold. Because, that's, I mean, it's fairly easy for us to get to the point of having a public hearing, but then the public hearings, sometimes they go very quickly, but
Yeah.
sometimes they don't. I know I was surprised when the Alice Grimm School came in opposing having the status. I thought that was going to be a cakewalk.
I mean, I think if we look at that hearing and we look at the hearing for the
Horace Lewis,
Horace Lewis as not the longest they could be, but kind of the longer ones. I think we should be able to get through 2 in a meeting.
yeah, we probably could if we plan them carefully.
And that's assuming that we hopefully won't have 2 long ones in a day.
In the beginning, you're gonna be picking the low hanging fruit, the easy ones.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, Kathy has pointed out more than once that it makes sense to go after the difficult ones because those properties are most at risk.
Yeah, the most at risk are the ones that we're most likely to spend more time on because the owner may not want it, the possible developer may not want it, so if we have a mix of low hanging fruit and,
Well, if we keep it one easy, one difficult, we could probably do 2 per meeting.
we could, and we have to accept that some of those meetings, our easy one is going to become difficult.
Yeah, right.
So on that, I had a thought, well, I had a question, because with the Alice Grimm House and, I forgot the lady, the principal's, objections, I honestly don't know what the difference is between, a historically zoned property and a residential property. To know, she brought up some roadblocks that she feels are going to obstruct her ability to make improvements to the building. But as a historical property, like what roadblocks are they just
her issues-
presumed or?
Our issues seem to largely be focused around time. And that's the biggest issue that we have is if you under our process can't walk into the building department and ask for a permit
Mhm.
without it being forced into 30 or 60 days. I think that was her concern because of the way that their funding works.
Right.
Yeah, well, she was also concerned about the funding, both about getting it and about executing it.
Mhm.
And in terms of getting it, my experience when I was with the state and also when I was with other organizations and applying for the funding was that in fact, it was beneficial to have the status. In terms of not being able to meet the time limit set in the funding because you run into a roadblock with zoning or something of that sort. My experience has been that you can generally go back to the funding provider and ask for an extension or a waiver.
And that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I mean,
And the other objections that we've kind of briefly touched on are potential neighbor objectives that the reusage of that property under historical zoning can be like a bed and breakfast or something else. So that's something I didn't know much about either, but in terms of having that discussion with potential homeowners to say, this is why you want to do it. And, here are the pros, here are the cons, here's how historical class 2 zoning compares to residential zoning. So we have kind of a talk track to explain to people why this is a positive or negative.
I'm not sure that there's any conflict between residential zoning and historic preservation zoning.
I
I
think
mean, it's
that's
an
what-
overlay.
I think that's an overblown concern, but it is
Yeah.
a real concern. Because in order to get the variance to use that, you've got to get through zoning. Which, as we've seen, isn't necessarily as easy as one would think. Like the Price House,
The John Price House.
you would think in theory that would be easy because they're following an existing use and it's not residential use, but the reality would show that is not as easy to apply as you would want. So the idea that somebody might be able to put a bed and breakfast in the middle of a residential neighborhood based on a variance because it's a historic property. It's a concern, but you still have to get through everything else, and it's not that easy to do.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I mean, though. I mean, you hear, I don't want to misconstrue what someone's saying, like, oh, well, we don't want a bed and breakfast there. Well,
Am
does
I-
that mean
am I
that they
describing
could
that incorrectly?
have a bed and breakfast there or?
Well, you can have a bed and breakfast in an historic property if
Right,
it's permitted.
as an adaptive reuse, which I
Right.
think is what a lot of the concern seems to be from a,
But it doesn't, you can adaptively reuse an historic property as a private residence as well.
right,
There's nothing, I would think that is the kind of fear that a neighbor might have. it could be explained in a hearing, no, this, you don't, this is something you really don't need to worry about. Because just the fact that it's been designated a historic property doesn't mean that it's going to be put to some kind of horrible adaptive.
It's not as easy to get there as you would think. It took me, for my
Yeah.
property, it took 3 years and Delaware County Orphans Court to get there.
Yeah,
It's not something somebody's going to embark on lightly. And even if they do, the neighbors have a considerable amount of sway to prevent it from becoming something that is truly a detriment to the
right, that they
neighborhood.
really don't want in the neighborhood.
Is there documentations, I don't know if you know this, on the website or something that states like, here are the different zones and here what they mean?
Yeah, we have that all online. Wish to look at that.
I understand neighbors' concern, but I think it's a little overblown.
Oh, and I'm not saying that it isn't, it's just when not having, like something to point to, like, here you go online, you can see that the zoning says this. So even though your concern is this, we can tell you with 100% confidence, not just, oh, no, it's not a problem because I said it is, that's more what I was getting to, like, is there a way to, discern and make more of a concise talk track to people when we're saying, before we get to the hearing stage, hey, we want to put your property up for a class 2 application. Oh, well, we talked about it and my neighbors are very concerned. Well, here's why your neighbors don't need to be concerned, and, kind of move things along so we don't have as many, as many challenging applications to work through.
Well, I think you're bringing up a point as to, should we be contacting the neighbors? I mean, not the neighbors, excuse me. Should we be interacting directly with the property owner before the nomination is made? And I think to this point, we've been pretty much doing that.
Yeah, it's certainly not a good
they
idea
have
to
to.
surprise them.
Yeah, no, you don't want to surprise them.
Right, but I don't think that we're saying, I don't think it's, would you like us to submit the application? It's, we are submitting the application. And I don't know if the asking their permission first or asking for their blessing would be
Well,
the
it's
more polite way to go,
I'm
or,
not sure that contacting them ahead of time is necessarily asking their permission. It's an interactive process. Just like, I guess, Kathy and Frank and maybe you too, Chris, have been involved with owners of the properties that we've talked about so far. And it's an interactive thing. I mean, you're not coming in and saying, boom, this is what's happening. Boom, that's what's happening. You're having a discussion about it. And as these fears surface, you can have a discussion about those fears. I mean, the reaction that we got from the principal of the Alice Groom School, and I guess it was the president of their student body or parents association or whatever.
Number 2, number 3, whatever.
Right, yeah.
Doesn't matter.
What that said to me was that they were very inexperienced in dealing with grant funding. Because a lot of the questions that they, a lot of the issues they raised as potential problems really aren't, if you know how to play the grants game. That kind of thing can be, those are things that you would want to surface as you were talking to people. I'm surprised we didn't know about that ahead of time with the school.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly easier to stay with what you know than go with what you don't, which could have been.
Well, grant funding is difficult too, especially if you're dealing with the state or the feds. I mean,
Yeah.
those grant applications are just miserable.
Well, hopefully we won't have to run into that too
We don't
much,
do it.
because I think most of our properties are residential, but.
Right.
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to take us so far off.
Do we-
track, I just.
Yeah.
wanted-
Well, let's get back on track.
Do we
Okay?
think 18 is a reasonable number? Or do we
I
wanna
think
go
it's a
12?
little high. I don't know, I'd feel more comfortable with 12. I don't know
How about
about the
15?
rest of you.
I think the idea though is we want to go higher than potentially what we would use, because I think we can expect them to knock it down no matter what our high end is. So if we say, well, reasonably, we'll only pass 10, then, you know.
I don't think they're gonna knock down the number of properties. we
No,
do.
no, no, I mean, our
Knock
total-
down the Budget.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is if our budget is for 10,
Yeah,
then they're gonna say, then our
yeah,
budget
but
will only
we,
allow
we're,
for
we're gonna
7.
have a total budget, a bottom line budget, and I think that's all the supervisors will.
I
look at.
agree, I agree. I just mean that the number of properties that we're budgeting for should be on the high end, so that it requires our budget to be higher.
I mean, we don't have one today, but we really should strive to have at least one every meeting.
Yes,
And if we then leave room to have more than one in some meetings, that seems reasonable. But if we continue on the path we're going, I agree. I don't see us getting to 18.
I think 12 is more reasonable, but if you're more comfortable settling on 15, I'll go for that. What do you think,
Well-
Frank? How do you feel about it?
I think 18 is what we could do.
I mean, we said earlier, we wanted to do one hard and one easy in our session, so that means we're teeing up. Well, 24 essentially, if we had.
Oh, I
12
know we
meetings.
can't do that. We
I
can't.
know.
I mean, because there's a lot of background research that we have to go out and do in order to put a
But I
nomination
can see,
forward.
but I can see us working on putting two forward in each meeting, knowing that in half of those meetings we'll only actually put one forward because of
Mhm,
issues that come up.
mhm.
Or we'll pull one off the agenda because something has come up.
Hmm.
So the 15 to 18 range seems like what we are aiming for. But I'm fine with it being 15.
Well, we've got two of you who want 18. We've got me who wants 12. And we've got
And I'm
Chris
just
who
trying to
wants
be a
15 to 18.
Yeah.
So, all right, well then, let's stick with the 18 then,
18.
if that's what most of you are comfortable with.
And we really don't know what it's going to be or how it's going to be. Have to put something up.
Right,
They're looking to make a budget and they have to have something to go by.
right,
So they can take our best guesstimate. It's all new to everybody here.
that's right,
Best guesstimate is 18.
yeah, okay,
All right, and then I will reach out to Steve and try to figure out what we think these are gonna cost per property and whether doing two at a time is actually really any cheaper than doing one at a time per property, and we'll go from there. So the second item that we brought up was community outreach events. Tiffany came up with a list of a bunch of the ones that are around here that are possible, so I don't know if we want to kick around in the future, which of these actually might be the most interesting to us.
maybe what we need to do for now, for the purpose of getting the budget done. And to help us kick the can down the road a little bit, is to determine the number of events we want to try to do next year. And create just a flat budget without naming the specific events. And pick the specific events later on.
Yeah, I looked up the events just so we had an idea of,
Yeah, no, I think it's very helpful, and I think what we end up with should come off this list.
And I don't know if some of these events charge for booth space. or
yeah,
some
I didn't know
don't.
any of that. I just looked at the calendar.
Yeah, well, I
Previous years.
mean, that's one reason for not picking specific events right now. We don't have enough information about some of them. Also, too, another thing we have to think about is manpower in setting up those events and running them. Because that's going to have to come out of this committee. And there are only 6 of us right now.
Mhm.
And
I think manpower wise, if we picked wisely, we could do a couple of events without really stressing people for their weekends.
yeah, I would think so too. I mean, that sounds sort of reasonable to me. Like maybe try and do an event in the fall, an event in the spring or something of that sort.
And at some point along the way, we'll have to determine what we wish to accomplish by doing these events. Obviously, we want, people to know what we do and the such, but
Yeah, well, that's a very good point. I mean, it's people knowing what we do. I did write an article for the spring newsletter. Steve, is the newsletter out?
Within the next few weeks, it'll be out. It's not out yet, though.
Oh, okay.
Should be the end of this month, early August. It'll hit mailboxes.
So I did write an article for the newsletter about what we do. But, you know, I mean, we can use an event to educate people about what we do. We can use events just to educate people about historic preservation generally.
Yep, and it may be that simply setting up a table and having some information and having some friendly faces there to chat serves the purpose of what we want to do.
Yeah,
I completely forgot to add on here the 4th of July parade.
bingo. Ladies and gentlemen, add the 4th of July parade to your list.
Are you proposing a float or just tables?
Not a
everyone?
float, but I mean, this past one, I mean, a lot of people were just in cars with,
Right.
you know, a little sign on their
Signs on the
car.
side.
And then people walking next to it, handing out brochures.
Or if somebody has a pickup truck,
A really old.
Somebody has-
I'll put my children on the back and they can
Have
squirt the other
track.
kids and throw candy, which is really what they're there for.
Frank has 2 antique pickup trucks.
Perfect.
If you said pickup, I got it.
We are in business.
So my outfit can stay in the garage.
Right, I mean, you know, we can all climb into the back of the pickup truck, wear silly hats and crazy outfits and hand out.
And they have a magazine for ads, so we would want to put an ad in the magazine as well.
That might cost money.
I know, but
That'll
Maybe
be a
not
little more
much.
expensive.
Yeah,
If it's a really nice magazine, it comes out every month.
no, I mean just
No,
the
the-
4th of
the-
July parade
the
magazine.
parade magazine,
Oh, that's a little better.
yeah.
But you're looking for
No.
No, no, that would be expensive.
No.
Well, why don't we just settle on 2 events and budget for 2 events? And then we can figure out going down the pike, what we want those 2 events to be. I think the 4th of July parade's a great idea.
Mhm.
I mean, we can actually do that without killing ourselves,
Right, and it's fun.
and it's fun.
I just noticed
What?
Circle at Sundown is on this list twice.
Oh, is it?
we could do it once.
Oh, yes, it's number 2 and number 6.
I missed
All
it
right,
this year,
I-
but that one's in
I
May.
believe that my wife knows the organizers of Pints on the Square. So I can ask her. if-
Birthday is,
April.
I did it, yeah, but I did it. And there's so much help and so many people that get involved in it.
Mhm.
And it only needs somebody over there to hand out some literature and say something. I'll be there, Kathy will be there.
Yeah, I
Right, that's why I put that on there. It's at the paper mill house. I mean,
would
think-
what
I
better
would- I would
location?
think that one would be a no-cost event.
And the historic
Defense
Newtown
Square
Square
Day
Day,
is the
that's
same
another
thing.
one.
Also a no-cost event.
Aside from the brochures and flyers or whatever marketing material we wanted to have available.
But you know, for the way we're talking, it sounds like the biggest cost that we'll have around events is we need to put together some good marketing material
Mhm.
and then have a lot of it.
Well, number 3 is printing.
Mhm.
And I think if we are going to set up a table at any of these events, we probably need a table banner, probably need some sort of brochure, flyer, and some sort of card. Unfortunately, none of that's very expensive.
Yeah, the
Mm.
cost that I found, and this was just looking at Staples, I didn't even go bargain shopping for printing. Was generally, you know, $100 for the banner and then for 500 flyers or banners or, you know, most of the printouts, for 500, you could get those done for $100. So if we had, you know, 4 different types of flyers, I mean, I was just spitballing ideas.
Or one sort of massive, one basic flyer that is kind of the descriptive flyer of what we do and who we are and what historic. You know, I'm thinking in terms of, what's it called? I think it's called an accordion fold.
Trifold?
Not trifold, accordion fold, where it's done on, I guess, 11 by 17 or 8.5 by 11. It folds in and then it folds in again on itself.
That's a gatefold.
Gatefold, okay. That's the way we did the brochures for the wildlife refuge at Dunwoody.
Mhm.
And you can get a lot of information on them that way.
Okay.
And also use a lot of graphics.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. It would have to be something that's folded and
Yeah.
more easily
Yeah.
consumable. People are not fans of
Yeah.
reading.
Well, Chris, you know how to do this stuff, don't you?
I do. And I'm actually in the process of organizing general cost for it currently, so we should be able to put on our little budget sheet what we're actually thinking about and some sort of reasonable numbers. But Tiffany's numbers for Staples are also not necessarily far off or terribly expensive. And by not necessarily far off, I mean, they're right on for Staples.
Right.
I don't know if the township requires us to use certain vendors or not, but
I don't know, does the township require us? to
Township
use it?
does regularly use Pegasus printing. So that's probably what we'll do. It'll probably come through the township and then the township will just use whatever the historic commission's budget would be for it. But the township usually handles that kind of thing.
Okay.
In-house.
easy enough.
If it's smaller things, it's something that can be printed by our staff and we can do that. But if it's something bigger, like a banner or something like that, we'll go through Pegasus for it.
Or can we go out of house and get reimbursed? Or is that not looked upon
I
with
don't
favor?
think that's the easiest way to do it.
You said
Mhm.
Pegasus printing,
Yes,
where are they located?
right down Westchester Pike, across from the McDonald's over there.
Brumont?
Yeah, Brumont.
Cool. Yeah, I've got a bunch around here as well, but just I can kind of look at what they do and then we just won't design anything that they can't do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
that
By the way,
sounds-
I am not
And
a
they might-
designer.
Well, and they might have some ideas on, what kind of material works best for what we're doing from their experience.
Mhm.
As far as, the type of material goes, like the trifold or the eightfold or whatever it is. One sheeter, like what size.
Well, I think probably we should select that based on the information that we want to put in. And Chris, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but the different ways that you can do these brochures are pretty standard.
I would think that anything we would be doing would be pretty standard.
Mhm.
You can also get totally crazy if you want, but I don't think that's us.
No. Certainly not coming out of the
Do we
gate.
have any designers on this committee?
No, I have written brochure text before.
All right, I'm sure we can get it done.
And I can do that. But I'm not a graphic
And the
designer.
historic committee has, or the historic society has similar small brochures, so I'm sure Kathy.
Oh,
knows who designed
yeah,
them.
Kathy has all kinds of sources, I think. I mean, we do have a graphic designer that we use at Dunwoody that I did use for our brochure. And she did an absolutely fantastic job, and she wasn't very expensive.
Okay,
But again, this may be something that the township has a graphic designer we have to use.
Someone
Have
had to get
figure out
back
what
to
you
you
want
on.
to put on.
Okay.
What?
Let's figure out what you want to put on first,
Well, right.
Yeah,
Right now, we have a blank sheet and we're worried whether it's all 5 times or 3 times.
well, I think when we get to that point,
what
what we'll have to do is do a few rough drafts and a
Yeah.
few mock-ups and.
for the budget, it doesn't matter whether you have it
No, for the-
5 times or 3 times.
Right,
We have to have it in the budget. That's what it's like.
what would go into the budget is just something that says a brochure.
yep, I think we have enough to work with
Gives us,
here. I did add design work as a question mark. Although I feel if we ask around a little bit, we can get that done.
Well, unless I think that the Historical Society has someone who does graphic design. And unless we have to use someone from the township as a graphic designer. If the Historical Society has someone, that's fine. I can get the person that we use at Dunwoody.
Well, let's figure out where we wind up and what we want to decide we want to go with, and then we'll
Yeah,
cross that bridge. I think, I think budget wise, we can,
well, if we plan for,
Budget.
if we plan for two events with the associated supporting material, banners, whatever else we need, plus a basic standard brochure that kind of tells who we are and what we do. Would that cover us?
yeah, I mean, I think if we get a table, I think if we get a table banner or a table graphic, a basic brochure, maybe just a basic little card that has little information on it that people can take, easy to fit in a pocket.
And we can use that at multiple events.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
Yeah,
And I don't know if the township has pop-ups for us to use, but if not, I've got a standard white pop-up tent that we can
mhm,
use along with whatever table we acquire. So,
right.
We do have tents that you can use for events.
excellent. That's covered.
Okay.
Don't need to buy a tent.
I have 2 tents as well, so I think we're covered on tents.
As it sounds like we will not be tent poor.
We will each have a tent, one tent for each commissioner, or whatever we are. All right, so I think that gives us a place to jump off for the budgeting.
So
Okay.
I noted 2 events that are similar to our commission. So the Historic Newtown Square Day
Mhm,
and Earth Day at the Paper Mill House.
mhm,
And then those would be 2 events, and then the 4th of July parade, kind of a
Yeah.
standalone.
mhm. That would work.
Mhm, okay.
Yeah.
I will be out of town for the 4th of July, as I always am. But
Well, then you can't ride in the back of Frank's truck.
I know, I might come back just for it. But if we can figure out if there's a cost to be in that event. And what we would think we might need to budget as far as candy flinging and,
So
Hay
from what I
bales.
understood from people who were in the parade, you really just have to tell the commission you want to be in the parade. There wasn't a cost to
Yeah.
participate. I think the cost would again be the brochures. Any
Well,
candy to be flung. if-
Yeah, well, we couldn't, at the parade, we couldn't really use brochures because you can't kind of. throw-
No, they have people walking along
Oh, I see what you're
truck
saying.
to hand them out.
we could use the same one then.
Yeah,
Or if we have, little cards, fling them at people.
Yeah.
Probably not.
no, we could use,
But yeah, give that one some thought, because that seems a little more complicated than the,
And then the 4th of July
yeah.
magazine.
I would say. Chris, you may have better sense than I do, but given the events we're talking about. I think we're probably going to need a run of about 10,000 brochures.
it seems high, but I mean,
They're not
where
going
you're actively giving them out, like the 4th of July, that's a wild card.
Mhm.
But I don't think you're gonna give that many away at the Historic Day events.
but two, I mean, if it's our standard basic generic brochure, it will last for years.
Mhm.
If we don't use them all up, it's not a problem.
But if it eats all of our budget up, that we're allotted.
I will. I'll come up with a general cost for small run, medium run,
Right,
bigger run.
So we don't have, so the birthday is in April, Historic Newtown Square Day is June. 4th of July obviously is in July, so we do not have anything for the spring or the fall unless we wanted to try to get something accomplished. By,
isn't Earth
Find
Day in the
something.
spring?
that's why I said spring, summer. We don't have one for the fall. I misspoke
April.
originally.
You just say April?
Ah,
I meant the fall.
Oh, fall. Gotcha.
Jeez. So Pints on the Square is September. And
Yeah, I'll
That's
reach,
it.
I'm gonna see if I can reach out and find out if there's a cost, Pints in the Square.
mhm.
I believe our household knows some of the organizers for that.
And that would be a 2-month lead time because that's at the end of September.
Yes, allegedly I'm running it.
Lights on the square. That's done by the business association, isn't it?
I think they work with the fire company on that, but I know the business association has a hand in that.
Mhm.
It's a big fundraiser, so I can't imagine that tent space is for free. But we could probably figure it out. We've got a month to do so, so.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we can't finalize. Tiffany keeps coming back to what the supervisors will give us in terms of money. So
Well, don't we still have budget for 2023 that we haven't used?
yeah, but that doesn't carry over.
Oh, I know. I just mean for September, we're talking about 2024 budget here,
Right, yes.
but for this coming September,
Oh, for this I don't.
we
think
would have a
should try.
2023
I
budget.
don't think we should try and do anything. We don't have the time to get it our.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this is like one more meeting. Where we have to finalize the budget request. I think we're talking about, realistically, we're talking about next year.
Indeed.
Okay, what I would suggest, given the fact that we have to vote at the next meeting to finalize the budget. I would suggest. When you've got what you think it should be. Get it to Steve, so Steve can distribute it to all of us, because we can't.
I will try
Among-
not, I will try not to procrastinate on this one.
Yay.
Can't promise, but I'll try.
Well, the thing is, we can't circulate this among ourselves because of the sunshine laws. But if you can get it to Steve, he can send it to all of us.
Yep. And I honestly, I think number one is gonna be all of our budget. Community outreach and the printing costs, as I've said, compared to what the application cost may be, is just, that's a little bit on the back end.
Yeah, well, and once the supervisors decide whether they're going to meet our budget request or not, if we get cut, then we can decide how we're going to handle the cut. Are we going to reduce the number of properties, or are we going to reduce the number of events?
We just tell
Yeah.
them to get a better deal on their filing costs.
Right,
File cheaper.
yeah,
No, but yeah, once I have a little better number on the application cost, that's really the bulk of the budget.
yeah, right. So our decision is, it should go in the minutes, that you and Chris will work this up and
Mhm.
get it to Steve,
Right.
who will distribute it to us.
In my understanding, I need to have it as three of these, one for applications, one for community outreach, and one for printing.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that's the case. And don't forget, it's,
And if we don't have any cost for community outreach, then
if there's no cost, you don't have to submit a budget sheet.
Yep.
It just becomes part of our plan for next year. The supervisors approved the budget in November, is that correct?
I think they do it before.
November or December. But
I think it's,
that general time frame.
What?
I thought it was September, October.
No, they start working on it then, they don't approve it that early. Because once we do our bit next month, then we just have to sit until the supervisors are done, which means probably we're looking at December before we can finalize what we're gonna do for next year. Okay,
so on this budget request form. The front looks fairly straightforward.
I would say if you have any questions about how to fill that out, talk with Stephen Neese.
All right, I just didn't know necessarily what the potential revenues related to use of funds sections is for.
May not apply to us because we're not planning on generating any revenues.
And that. There isn't really actually a place on here that I see for what we're asking for either. Am I looking at the right form?
Yeah, you're looking at the right form. This is the one that was given to me. This is the correct form.
Okay.
I mean, this section on revenues, you just won't fill in because we're not,
Then I will try to put together a sheet that lists what I'm at, what we are at a high level, and then I'll try to attach it to those that spells it out.
yeah. Now, this is asking for 2-year projection for 2024 and 2025. And I would just ignore the 2025.
Reasonable. I can do that.
And if they don't like it, they can come back and yell at
So really,
us.
actually, it looks like I just need to deal with the expenditure line in the middle.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Then why don't we close this discussion and move on to whatever is next?
Well, whatever is next is the final agenda on the item, final item on the agenda. Speak English, Connie. Which is update and possible action regarding amendments to the Historic Preservation Ordinance. Do you have any information for us on this, Stephen?
I have no new information to add. The solicitor is still working on this and the intern is also working on this as well. I don't have a timeline, but I just know it is in the works to get done.
I'm sorry, could you say again?
I don't have an exact timeline, but I know it is in fact in the works to get done. I know he's just making sure that everything is in line with the state code for how zoning process works and all that kind of stuff. But as soon as we have any information, we'll let the commission know.
Yes, I would point out that we made our first request for a change in the ordinance to the class 1 listing 5 months ago. And I do think it's reasonable to expect some action on it.
Or at least some feedback.
That too. We know that he wants to change some of the language, but that's all we know. It's time to bring it to a conclusion.
Have we started compiling our next list of changes?
Well, yeah, well, yes, we did submit a second set of changes regarding the timeframes, changing 30 days to 28 days. So that we didn't have the problem of
Yep.
missing meetings because of a weird month that didn't have the right number of days in it. Stephen Neese researched that to the point of his opinion was that we could probably change one of them. I requested it in 2 places, that we could probably change one of them, but the other one may have been, the rules may have been set.
Okay.
In such a way that it couldn't be changed. But that also is in limbo.
All right.
But that's only 3 or 4 months, 3 months, I guess.
I always look at the residency requirement to be on this commission and find that a little irritating. In that I've always thought it should be resident or property owner.
That's a good point, especially given the difficulty in recruiting people to be on the commission. We're still waiting for our,
We actually have 2 potential candidates to be interviewed at some point this week. We should have a new member by the next Board of Supervisors meeting to be approved. So we do have people.
okay. Well, that would be good because we've been down virtually all year.
And this isn't necessarily something that has to be discussed today, but
No. Well, if you want to put it on the agenda for a future meeting, just let me know and I'll put it on.
I am certain there are historic property owners in the township that are currently blocked because they might live in Marple
Hmm,
or somewhere else.
yeah, no, I think personally, I think it's a very good suggestion.
Mhm.
Makes a lot of sense.
It might be something that never comes up, but it just irritates me.
Well, I mean, it expands the pool of
It-
people.
Even
that
if
can
just
be-
a little bit, yes.
Yeah, which is all to the good, the more the merrier.
All right.
Okay, there is no public comment. Items for the next agenda. The biggie will be the finances. The budget and plan for next year. And I assume that we will be able to review the flow chart at the next meeting. So that would be an agenda item as well.
We have,
Kathy says that she will bring forward a property for next month. So that can go on.
so we'll have a new submission to discuss.
Yes, hopefully we should. Can anybody think of anything else?
The historical property list and prioritization.
Yes. Sounds like a plan.
Yep.
We good?
Perfect. I do just want to let you know that we have 28 days until our next meeting. So we won't be able to hear any applications until the following meeting. We haven't received
Well,
any
we would not be
applications.
having a hearing next time anyway, because we don't have any applications that are at that point. What we would be doing at the next meeting would be nominating
Okay.
a property, so that the hearing for whatever property we nominate next month would be in September.
Okay.
Is our next meeting on August 22nd or 29th?
On the 22nd.
Perfect. I will be here.
Oh,
I'm going on vacation on the 29th.
ah. You're allowed.
Well, thank you. I was going to suggest I'm only going to Florida to visit family. I take an hour and a half out of my day. Just do a Zoom meeting, it'll be fine.
No. Enjoy your
A
vacation.
small break from my children is a vacation.
Tell me about it. I remember those days very well.
We will advise you if you need to Zoom.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have new members and such.
Okay, well. If there is no further business, I'm going to declare the meeting adjourned. And if I needed a motion and didn't make one, just create it.